This House now resumes its sitting. Good morning, everyone. I call on the Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move a motion to lay an additional document on the table, which would require us to return to presentation of papers. Of course, Madam Speaker, I would ask your indulgence and the indulgence of the House, and so, of course, waive that particular standing order, standing order 11, to allow us to return, so that we can lay on the table a self-assessment report on the implementation of the recommendations of the 2022 British Virgin Islands Commission of Inquiry report. Madam Speaker,
Honorable members, a motion has been moved and seconded. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The motion is passed. I call on the Premier to lay his document.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to lay on the table the following document: self-assessment report on the implementation of the recommendations of the 2022 British Virgin Islands Commission of Inquiry report. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I call upon the Premier and Minister of Finance to move a motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Commercial Recreational Vessels Licensing Amendment Bill 2024 be read a second time. Madam Speaker, I stand before this Honorable House to address a matter of significant importance to the maritime community and the broader economic landscape of the Virgin Islands. The introduction of amendments to several key pieces of legislation governing commercial recreational vessels represents a critical step towards fostering a more transparent, efficient, and thriving maritime industry in our jurisdiction. These amendments are the result of careful deliberations, comprehensive stakeholder consultations, and an in-depth analysis of the evolving needs of our maritime industry. They are designed to streamline processes, enhance operational efficiency, and create an environment that supports sustainable growth, thereby solidifying the Virgin Islands' position as a premier maritime jurisdiction within the region. Madam Speaker, the core objectives of these amendments focus on streamlining vessel categorization, ensuring vessel license integrity, promoting large yacht presence, strengthening registration requirements, mandating BVI charter origin, and exempting BVI vessels from both cruising permits and import duties. To achieve these goals, legislative amendments will be made to the following acts: the Commercial Recreational Vessel Licensing Act 1992, the Cruising and Home Port Permit Act 2021, the Customs Management and Duties Ordinance 2010, and the Statutory Fees, Rules and Charges Act. Madam Speaker, a key amendment to the Commercial Recreational Vessel Licensing Act 1992 pertains to the expiration dates of CRVL licenses. By transitioning from from a uniform expiration date of October 31st to an anniversary date expiration. We aim to eliminate procedural bottlenecks and reduce administrative burdens on vessel operators. This change will facilitate a smoother and more staggered renewal process, ensuring timely license renewals without overwhelming administrative resources. Additionally, we propose extending the allowable period for non-commercial vessels to remain in our territorial waters before requiring importation. This measure aligns with international standards and reinforces the Virgin Islands as a welcoming destination for maritime tourism, encouraging prolonged stays that drive economic activity and strengthen our reputation as a top-tier maritime hub. Madam Speaker, the proposed amendments also include a revision of CRVL fees, which have remained unchanged since the Act's enactment in 1992. The adjustments will reflect current market rates and inflation levels, ensuring administrative efficiency while maintaining competitiveness within the industry. To facilitate a smooth transition and ensure industry-wide understanding, a public awareness campaign has been launched. As part of this initiative, external stakeholder consultation meetings were held with maritime industry partners on September the 22nd, 2023, October the 6th, 2023, and April 18th, 2024, and October 8th, 2024. These consultations have been instrumental in shaping the proposed amendments, ensuring that industry voices and concerns are reflected in the final legislation. Madam Speaker, the proposed amendments to the Commercial Recreational Vessel Licensing Act 1992 include replacing comptroller with commissioner throughout the Act, specifying that an annual license is valid for 1 year from the date of issuance, and prohibiting licensed vessels from changing category within a license year. Other amendments clarify that licenses apply to each vessel rather than the owner or fleet. Extend the time frame in Section 10.1 from 30 to 180 days and apply this decision to commercial recreational vessels under 500 gross registered tonnage. Additional changes include increasing the period in Section 10.2 from 20 to 80 days, restricting commercial vessels over 500 GRT from remaining in BVI waters for more than 60 continuous days, and introducing an off-charter extension of up to 90 days for large yachts, subject to an administrative fee of $250. The amendments further prohibit non-Virgin Islands vessels from intra-trading within BVI waters, while allowing the Minister to grant intra-trading permissions under limited conditions with associated fees and compliance requirements. Definitions for key terms such as BVI vessel, commercial vessel, and foreign-based water taxis will be established. And foreign-based vessels will be restricted to a maximum of 7 charters within a 12-month period. An updated CRVL fee structure will also be introduced under the Statutory Fees, Rules, and Charges Act. Madam Speaker, following the first reading in the House of Assembly, Governor Albert Bryan Jr. of the United States Virgin Islands led a delegation to the Virgin Islands on the 7th March 2025 to engage in discussions regarding the proposed amendments. Specifically, these discussions addressed provisions perceived to be detrimental to the United States Virgin Islands charter boat industry. A subsequent meeting was convened in the United States Virgin Islands on the 15th of April 2025. Madam Speaker, I was pleased to have the opportunity to conduct these dialogues with our counterparts, and we affirm the importance of continued regional cooperation. Additionally, Madam Speaker, a meeting was held with local industry partners on the 8th April 2025, during which previously expressed concerns were reiterated and new concerns were presented for consideration. Madam Speaker, I have assured both Governor Bryan Jr. of the USVI and our local partners that all concerns will be given due consideration during the committee stage of the House. Madam Speaker, amendments to the Cruising and Home Port Permit Act 2021 include creating an annual cruising permit exemption for BVI vessels at specified fees, exempting large charter vessels from intra-trading restrictions. My apologies, Madam Speaker. I'll just forego that. Madam Speaker, by implementing these changes, we not only stimulate economic growth, but also safeguard the long-term viability of our blue economy. Madam Speaker, I seek the support of every member of this Honorable House in advancing these crucial amendments. Together, we will ensure that the Virgin Islands remains a premier maritime destination and a beacon of excellence in the region. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, the floor is now open for debate. I recognize the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Myron Walwyn.
Madam Speaker, I'm actually rising on a point of clarification and a point of information. Madam Speaker, this bill did not go through the usual fashion because of the consultation. Matter of fact, members asked for consultation to be had because we received letters from the industry. And we were also made aware of the situation with the USVI and their concerns. There was a break, as it were, in the sessions to complete this particular session because of the negotiations that were happening with the USVI. A major part of the contention was the fees. That is what a major part of the concerns that people brought to me as well from the industry. We have not heard back from the Premier and his team about the negotiations with the USVI. So I heard the Premier mention that we'll have that discussion in committee. But to do that in committee would rob us of the opportunity to go back to the very same people who came to us with certain concerns to say whether or not their concerns have properly been allayed. And I am very concerned about that. I think the proper thing to have done would have been for when the Premier concluded his discussions with the USVI governor and the team to come back to this Honorable House and say, I met with the USVI, these are the things that we discussed, these are the things that we agreed on, so that we can then go back to the people that we represent and ask them if they're happy with this. I'm very concerned about that. We're being blindsided here after such a long length of time. We had a whole weekend change off. The Premier went to St. Thomas to watch horse race. I don't know what else he offered him when he was down there with watching the horses go around the track. I don't know what else they talked about. I want to be able to consult with the people on the matter.
So Honorable, you rose on a point of information, but what exactly do you seek?
I'm seeking for there to be a discussion. The Premier has to come back and report to the House. What are we debating? When the floor is open for debate, when we get up and debate, we are debating based on the bill that is laid before us. We have no other information, but there were negotiations that changed the provisions, certain very important provisions of this bill. The fees. What are we going to argue on? What are we going to say?
I see. All right. Premier, the member rose on a point of information. I don't know how you wish to address.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to respond to the point of information raised by the member. First of all, Madam Speaker, I just have to respond to a comment which was made but Honorable Leader of my opposition, my very good friend. And for someone who is, Madam Speaker, so thin-skinned, I don't know why he is in such a provocative mood. He made a comment about somebody offering me something at a horse race. I don't quite know what that means. I don't think it's appropriate, Madam Speaker. I won't go as far as demanding an apology, as the Honorable Leader of our opposition does from time to time. But I'll just say, Madam Speaker, I think that comment was unnecessary and inappropriate. And I expect a little better from my honorable colleague. Having said that, Madam Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has my phone number, and he calls me from time to time, Madam Speaker. As opposed to grandstanding in the House, if the Leader of the Opposition had some information that he wanted to ask me about, no doubt about it, or even before this session started, the Leader of the Opposition could have said, before we start this session, can the Premier just give us a little brief report of what happened in the USVI? I think that would have been the appropriate thing, but Madam Speaker, that would not have scored political points. But Madam Speaker, having said that, if we want to have a brief recess so we could talk through what happened in the USVI, we can. But Madam Speaker, what we're debating is the bill before us. And of course, if we want to talk to any amendments to the bill, generally that's done in committee stage. I did say, Madam Speaker, in my statement that I made reference to the consultations that were done in the intervening period, but I would not be as presumptuous, Madam Speaker, to suggest that the House will accept those amendments when they're brought up in committee. And whatever discussions we've had with the United States Virgin Islands or our local industry partners, I made it very clear that this bill is before the House and it's subject to the agreement of the members of the House. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Member for the 6th, Honorable Premier, while you did not request an apology, member for the 6th, Leader of the Opposition, I do have to point out Standing Order 38-5, based on what the Premier indicate, and do ask you to address that, please.
Madam Speaker, I said that I don't know what other conversations they would have had during that time. I don't apologize, I don't have a problem, unreservedly apologize. But the point I want to raise, and I thank the Premier very much for recognizing what he's supposed to do.
All right, well, Honorable Member, I understand what you're saying. The Premier has indicated a step forward that it's for members at this point to decide, but I just wanted to point that out because it would be inappropriate for me not to.
I have no problems apologizing.
Premier, what do you wish to do? What do you wish to do?
Madam Speaker, can I request a recess, please?
All right. All right, honorable members, we will take a recess for further discussions to be had. This House is now in recess.